Hello and welcome back to another episode of Thoughts Per Episode Classic Doctor Who Edition. Today we will be looking at the serial The Romans, which is a four-parter and is being recorded, or at least this Thoughts Per Episode is being recorded, a day after the last one, because I'm getting on top of things, baby. Now, I have a little bit of knowledge about the Romans and that era of history, but there's also a lot about the Romans that I don't know. So I guess we'll see how this holds up in that regard, but I'm no expert, so I'm not going to be poking holes in it. I think that's what I've learned from watching these historical episodes. I don't know shit, so don't poke holes in it. But I do like the Roman era of history. I think it's interesting. I think there's a reason why it's so popular. And I'm interested to see Doctor Who's take on it. The Romans, Part 1, The Slave Traders. After relaxing at a villa, the Doctor is mistaken for a dead musician and taken to Rome. So yeah, at the end of the last serial we got that cliffhanger of the TARDIS materialising on the edge of a cliff and then falling down a big hole. And then there's a bit of a time skip for a month where it just seems like Ian, Barbara, Doctor and Vicky have just been living it up in Roman life. Actually, I quite like this because it seems like a lot of their travels are like danger into danger into danger into danger, so it's nice that they actually go somewhere that's nice, at least for a month, and they get a bit of a break. But I also like that they use this opportunity to talk about the Doctor's itchy feet of like how he can't really stay around in one place for too long because he gets bored easily, which of course is a running theme for his character throughout the series. Something I noticed in this episode, and it might just be because it's a bit of a slower episode with less drama, but there's a lot of scenes between characters which are just fun. Like, I kind of noticed this last episode as well when Ian and Barbara were talking to Vicky, but that was probably just to introduce Vicky to us as a character. But in this episode, like, Ian and Barbara have a lot of conversation between them, which they're just like making jokes and being friends and stuff, like when they're drinking wine and Ian asks if there's any ice and Barbara tells him to get it from the fridge and he actually starts to go there and she laughs at him and stuff like that. Or when Barbara and Vicky are in the market and Vicky's talking about how Barbara came from London and she's like, London? Never heard of it. I came from Londinium when in Rome. I wish there were more moments like this throughout the episodes because it's really charming. It makes me like these characters a lot. Also, this is the first episode where I felt like there could be some romantic ties between Ian and Barbara. I don't know why, I just kind of got that impression when they were hanging out together drinking wine, but maybe that doesn't go anywhere. They're obviously very close friends already, but I don't know, when Barbara, you know, reveals that she bought that comb for him and then she like basically jumps on him and like combs his hair against his will to make him look more Roman. I don't know, it was kind of cute. Of course, no good thing lasts forever, and while the Doctor and Vicky decide to take a trip to Rome, Ian and Barbara get kidnapped by slave traders, which is no fun at all. Even worse, they get separated by the end of the episode. Ian gets bought and Barbara doesn't. I don't like how legitimately scared Barbara is about this entire situation either. She really sells the fear of like being split up, you know, not knowing where each other have gone. You know, maybe the Doctor waits for them for a few months or whatever and then decides that they're not coming back and leaves them and they're just stuck as slaves in ancient Rome forever. Apparently it was very difficult to escape slavedom in Rome too. Meanwhile, while on the road to Rome, the Doctor and Vicky come across a dead body of a musician who was killed near the beginning of the episode, and the Doctor is mistaken for him by some dude who it turns out was actually plotting to murder that musician. So both parties are in dire straits. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed that this episode would have ended with all of the characters being in dire straits? That never happens. The Romans, Part 2. All roads lead to Rome. Barbara is sold as a slave and Ian is to be trained as a gladiator. Because of course he is. Ian is the one who does the fighting. Actually, I say that, but at the beginning of this episode, the Doctor is the one who does the fighting. He gets attacked. That was the cliffhanger at the end of the last episode. There was a guy gonna try and assassinate him. And he just like gleefully chuckles as he turns the dude around in circles and ends up kind of like bumping him out a window. It's all very comedically done, but at the same time it gives you an inkling that the Doctor might have had some kind of like combat experience in his past. It's very interesting. Once again, the hit TV show Doctor Who poses the question, Doctor Who? Coming from the future, it's easy to forget that the main theme of this show, or one of the main themes anyway, is that we don't exactly know who the Doctor is. I just like the Doctor's reaction to finding an assassin in his room. Oh, so you want to fight, do you? When Vicky arrives and is surprised to find the Doctor having basically won the fight, he mentions to her that he used to train the Mountain Mauler of Montana, and I have no idea who that is, so let's do a quick Google. Okay, interestingly, the only results I really got about this were to do with Doctor Who, but there's a TARDISfandom.com entry here that says that it's mentioned again. The Sixth Doctor also mentions the Mountain Mauler of Montana, and also, I think that was in an audio adventure as well, and also it's mentioned again in one of the books. So I like that sometimes they go back and they reincorporate the lore in these side adventures. But I guess the idea is that he's just a wrestler, and I'm sure he probably is based off of a real person, but all I got in the search results was Doctor Who. I like that this episode is called All Roads Lead to Rome, because that's basically what happens with our characters. Obviously, the Doctor and Vicky were already on their way to Rome, pretending to be that harpist dude, and he meets the Emperor Claudius Nero this time. Probably one of the famous ones. I'm not up to date on my Roman emperors. He's a large, rude Caesar, that's all I know. But Barbara is also sold as a slave to the House of Nero. There's a whole auction scene, and it's gross, and I hate it. And then, just by way of chance, the slave ship that Ian was on ended up crashing, and he managed to escape, and he managed to get to Rome, only promptly to get captured again and thrown in the same cell that was holding Barbara just minutes earlier. Speaking of barely missing Barbara, the Doctor and Vicky actually end up walking past the auction that Barbara's being sold at, and they just barely miss Barbara being sold at the auction. Oh no! I do like how Vicky's curious about what's going on there though, and the Doctor just hurries her on like, no, you don't want to see that. It's weird that the Doctor's in this predicament where he needs to know how to play this musical instrument that he clearly doesn't know how to play, and instead of trying to escape or like get out of that situation, he's just kind of going along with it. And then it's like, what are you gonna do when the Emperor asks you to play? And he's like, what? I like when at the end of the episode with the cliffhanger with Ian in the cell, they're telling him he's gonna have to be a gladiator in the arena, and it's like, what are we going to fight? And he looks out the window and suddenly it changes to stock footage of lions, and it's like, oh no! Stock footage of lions! I'm looking forward to seeing just what kind of lions Ian ends up fighting in the arena. I'm sure they're going to be very realistic. The Romans, Part 3. Conspiracy. Papier plans to poison Barbara, who has become the object of Nero's affections. One of the main themes of this episode is the Emperor's fascination with Barbara, and there's a few scenes where he's literally chasing her around the bedroom and the wider castle. And it's super gross, and I think I'm actually going to give it a yikes. If you remember, we have a yikes meter for all of the times I say yikes while watching this show. So our yikes meter has now gone up to 2, but it's not like a big yikes. I get that it was like played for laughs and stuff. It just felt gross to watch, and for that reason alone I think it gets a yikes. That being said, you know, historical accuracy and everything, the Emperor would have maybe not physically chased his servants around, but would have definitely gone after them, if you know what I mean. But it wasn't treated all that seriously in this episode. I think it's kind of a product of its time. Doesn't mean it's not a yikes, but I think it's a product of its time. But I just wanted to say that I think the actor who played the Emperor actually did a really good job of portraying him as a child, and there were actually moments which were pretty funny with him too later on, like the way he's telling his servants, go away! And when he almost gets poisoned later on, he's like looking at the goblet and he's like, and then like the servant who kept interrupting him and making mistakes earlier on, he just kind of called him over. He's like, I forget his name, but he's like, oh, Titalius. And then he drinks it, he's like, oh, they were telling the truth. But yeah, speaking about that poisoning, Vicky, sorry, has one of her best lines yet. She just goes to the Doctor, oh, something else I forgot to tell you. I think I poisoned Nero. And the Doctor's just like, you what? So luckily for the course of human history, I guess, they managed to get to Caesar in time and stop him from drinking the goblet, and they keep missing Barbara just barely. I think this is really meant to be quite a comedic serial, this one, and I think in a lot of places it does succeed in doing that, being comedic. My favourite part of the episode is when the Doctor literally plays a room full of nobles for fools when he says that his new melody is so delicate that only the finest, most refined ears, or whatever he says, can hear it and appreciate it. So of course they all pretend to hear it and appreciate it. And not only that, obviously Caesar pretends to hear it and appreciate it along with everyone else, but he believes everyone else can hear it and appreciate it, but they can't, and this infuriates him, and he thinks the Doctor's playing him for a fool. So he's going to have the Doctor beset by lions, which will be exciting to see next episode. I do love a good megalomaniacal emperor, It's always fun to watch them just like circle the drain of like their own jealousy and everything, and how they turn their friends into their enemies in their own mind and stuff like that. Not that the Doctor's necessarily his friend, but you know what I mean. It's just good shit. Ian's mostly left out of this episode. Probably got a week off, good for him, sitting in that cell, but it turns out he's not going to fight lions, he's going to fight his mate, which is, I'm pretty sure I've seen that trope in, like, gladiatorial arena fiction before, but, like, it's very sad, they don't want to kill each other, and at the end, they both have the opportunity to produce a killing blow on each other, and neither of them takes it, and the Emperor's like, grrr! I guess, like, we don't know that the other guy, Ian's friend, doesn't take it, but, I mean, that's the cliffhanger, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to take it. Pretty sure Ian doesn't get beheaded on this science fiction kids program. But, you know, I could be wrong. This could be Ian's last serial, and I just didn't know it. The Romans, Part 4, Inferno. Inspired by the Doctor, Nero sets Rome ablaze. Ian must fight his way out of the arena. This episode made me feel really stupid. I feel like Nero setting Rome ablaze must be like one of the most famous parts of Roman history, and I just didn't know about it. Somehow I've missed that. The first thought I had was that this is clearly where George R.R. Martin got the Mad King, the idea for him from. Aerys Targaryen. He's just Nero. He's just Nero, isn't he? But yeah, I do like how the Doctor unintentionally inspired the setting of Rome ablaze. This episode is basically just about escaping from Nero's palace and the various political intrigues they were entangled in. I guess I don't really have a lot to say about this episode, to be honest. This serial in general has made me want to learn more about this particular era of Roman history. Oh, at the end, when, what's his name, Tavius or something, when it zooms in on his little cross, made me realise that the reason why he probably wanted to help assassinate Nero was because he's of a Christian faith. Again, I really don't know much about this era of Roman history. I was listening to a podcast about Roman history, but it started at the very start, which is quite a long time before any of this happened. But I'm guessing this is when the rise of Christianity was really a thing, and I'm guessing there were factions within Roman society. Some of them believing it, some of them not, that kind of thing. One thing I just realised, I don't think they ever went back and helped the lady that Barbara was imprisoned with. I think she's still in there. I can't believe they actually kept the fact that the Doctor and Vicky will never know that Ian and Barbara were also part of that story together. They never ran into each other, and I guess that's kind of part of a whole comedic undertone of the entire story. But yeah, that was it. That was our Roman adventure. I wonder how many other times we're going to go to Rome over the course of this series. Oh, one last thing. At the end of the episode, when Ian and Barbara go back to the house and then they continue joking about there not being a fridge and stuff like that, I'm still sensing romantic tensions between them, which I didn't notice in the previous episodes. Again, I don't know if they're going to do anything with that. Please don't tell me if they do or don't, but that's my prediction. I think that they're going to become a couple by the end of their run in the show. Or it could just be a case of whoever wrote this episode had different ideas for them than whoever wrote other episodes. I didn't really pay attention to who was writing each episode, to be honest, but maybe that's it. Okay, enough speculation. It's trivia time. Aha! This script was the first attempt to do a comedy within the Doctor Who format. There you go. I knew I sensed some gifs and gaffs there. Goofs and gaffs. This was the first time a major actor requested to be on Doctor Who. Here, Derek Francis was given the role of Nero. That explains why he was so damn good in the role. This explains it. The Doctor's line about the mountain mauler of Montana was an ad-lib by William Hartnell. Oh, you legend. This episode saw the first use of stock footage for a cliffhanger, in this case a lion. That doesn't bode well for future cliffhangers. Are there more stock footage cliffhangers? There's a whole 2 million viewers who were watching the previous episodes and the 4th episode, but missed out on the 3rd episode because it was broadcast on the same day as William Churchill's funeral. Oh hey, I don't remember this. Apparently in the Fires of Pompeii episode in Modern Who, the 10th Doctor tells Donna he had been to Rome once before, but he had nothing to do with that fire. I like that kind of weighs on his consciousness throughout the regenerations, even though it was played for laughs in this one. Alright, that's it. That's all the interesting trivia that stood out to me on IMDb. But feel free to leave a comment if there's anything that I missed or that you thought was interesting. And leave a like on the video if you liked it. It helps the channel. I very much appreciate it. But for now, I'm going to leave you with some bloopers. I'll see you next week. Hello and welcome back. I don't know why I hesitated. So yeah, at the end of the last serial, we got that spin-off. What? Papilla plans to poison fuck, that's really hard to say. Papilla plans to poison Barbara, who has come... I don't really have a lot to say about this episode, to be honest. One thing I've noticed about this episode... Ooh, I'm so observant, I noticed a major part of a fucking story. Well done, Christian.